Big Lez's League, an all rugby league experience.
Hello, welcome back to Big Lez's League, an all rugby league experience. Welcome to your grand final preview. So keen to get stuck into this one. It is probably going to be one of the better grand finals we see in this current modern era. Obviously, last year's grand final was outstanding. The way that finished, Nathan Cleary in the big moment, standing up. I feel like we're going to get a similar game here. I feel like we're going to get a really competitive contest. I don't feel like there's going to be one better team throughout, a large period of the game. I think this game is going to be relatively even throughout the entire contest. You're looking at the two best sides in the competition. Yes, I think that Melbourne are slightly ahead of Penrith still. We've said that over the past few weeks that that's the case. But I really do think that this is going to be an extremely even contest. I don't think there's going to be a better team for a long stage in this one. I feel like it is going to be back and forth with the momentum. It really will be decided by who can keep the ball in their hand the longest and who can obviously complete the highest, less errors, less missed tackles, less penalties. It is going to be a really exciting game. And obviously, the bookies have it very even as well here. $1.84 for the Melbourne Storm on Sportsbet compared to $2 for the Penrith Panthers. Penrith Panthers obviously winning the last three grand finals. The only team to beat the Penrith Panthers is the Melbourne Storm in the past few years, obviously starting this grand final reign. In regards to the team list, we'll go through them very quickly. For the Melbourne Storm, it is Ryan Pappenhausen at fullback, Warbrick and Xavier Coates on the wings, Howarth, Meaney centres, Munster, Hughes, halves, Kamakamitha and Josh King in the front row, Harry Grant at 9, Sean Bloor, Eli Katoa, back row, Trent Liero, 13, Tyron Wishart, Christian Welsh, Lazarus Valepu being in this side too, which is huge. We'll talk about that in a second. And Alec McDonald, they are the bench. For the Penrith Panthers, it is Dylan Edwards at fullback. We've got Senea Taruva and Brian To'o wings, Tungo and Paul Alamotti in the centres, Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary, the last dance with these two in the halves. We've got Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris, front row, Mitch Kenny 9. We've got Luke Garner and Liam Martin, back row, Isaiah Yeo, 13. Brad Schneider, Lindsay Smith, Liam Henry, Matt Eisenhuth on the bench there. We do have Scott Sorensen to potentially come back into this side in jersey number 19. The question is, do you bring him back? Do you keep the lineup that's been, playing the past few weeks and been playing throughout this final series? It'd be very interesting topic of discussion there as well. And then in regards to the 14 jersey, how confident are you that Nathan Cleary is going to get through the entire game? They've obviously got a cover for him with Brad Schneider being in the 14 jersey. Does Brad Schneider come on in the 60th minute? Does he come on in the 70th, 75th minute and give Nathan Cleary a break if the Penrith Panthers are up enough? How good is that shoulder for Nathan Cleary? You obviously don't want to wish the worst on Nathan Cleary, but there's always a possibility that something could happen there. How confident are they in Nathan Cleary that he can get through the full 80 minutes? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, obviously a big game here, pretty much full strength, both of these sides. Not too many outs. There are a few injury concerns that we've heard throughout the week, obviously with Jerome Hughes, Harry Grant, and Nick Meaney, all having little niggling injuries they're coming into this game with. Nathan Cleary's obviously got a pretty obvious one that we've seen him, show on the field, holding his shoulder, at the stages at the back end of the game last week. So there obviously are a few injury concerns going into this one. But I think that in itself, the fact that a lot of these guys are coming into this game with niggling injuries here and there, that's what makes this game even, and that's what's going to make this game even going into this contest as well. Let's talk about a few of the matchups for this one. Obviously, the one that stands out for me the most is the halfback one. Nathan Cleary going up against Jerome Hughes. The Dally M Player of the Year going up against a guy that if he had played the full season and hadn't been out due to injury, he probably would have gotten that award. And Nathan Cleary's been very unlucky not to get Dally M's in the past years due to injury and suspension. But yeah, two of the best halfbacks in the competition regardless going at it. It is going to be a really fun battle to watch. Kicking game, running game, both of these halves do it the best in the competition. I am really looking forward to this battle. Jerome Hughes, that hybrid fullback, halfback sort of role. His running game is superb. In spread sets, he is so dangerous because you just don't know whether he's going to, put the accelerator on and go through holes himself. His footwork as well, his stepping game is elite. Where you've got Nathan Cleary, who's a tough runner of the football, tough tackler and defender as well. It is going to be a great battle to watch, Jerome Hughes and Nathan Cleary. But the kicking game for me is going to be what is most prominent in this game. That's going to be the biggest battle of all. The kicking game, how, if Melbourne trap Penrith in their own end, can Cleary get them out of it with a kicking game? Vice versa, if Melbourne get trapped in their own end, Jerome Hughes, can he get them out of their own end, get them out of trouble as well with his kicking game? That's going to be really, really, interesting to see. Obviously, the Melbourne Storm, they do have Harry Grant, who has kicked plenty of 40-20s in his time at a dummy half as well. So having that, I believe, is a little bit of an advantage over the Penrith Panthers. But regardless, this 7 battles what everyone, cannot speak English, is going to keep their eye on going into this contest. The 6th battle as well. Don't understate this 6th battle. You got Jerome Luai, who arguably should have been the 5'8" of the year this season, but obviously time at halfback probably troubled that a little bit. So Jerome Luai going up against Cam Munster. This one is going to be very, very interesting. Munster as well has been huge since coming back from the Melbourne Storm. Combinations on that left-hand side have really flourished. He's really come back into his own as well over the past few weeks, which has been great to see for Melbourne. I really don't think people can understate him and his impact on this side as well. Both of the halves for each side are going to be on their game if their side is to win in this contest. The fullback battle as well. Obviously, Joey Johns was talking on Channel 9 today about Ryan Papenhuyzen and his running game, and it's something that we've talked about on the podcast a number of times as well. Ryan Papenhuyzen, his ability to, really just engage defenders as well with his running game, but also to get his body in positions very, very quickly for him to go through holes in a defensive line, manipulating the defensive line, whether it's an inside ball of his back rower, to go through a gap where the back rower will run semi-outside on the outside shoulder of his defender and attract that defender to mark him outside off the short ball of a half or off Ryan Papenhuyzen himself. And then once the defender is attracted there, obviously whether it be the other back rower or the other half, when Eli Katoa or Sean Bloor is running on the outside shoulder of that player, it leaves a gap open in the middle. And Ryan Papenhuyzen, the thing that he will do is he'll fake to run outside where Eli Katoa can also throw an outside ball to him, and he'll cut back on the inside very, very quickly with that speed. Gets a short ball, he goes straight through that gap. They also do it in a number of different ways, whether it just be Jerome Hughes tipping the ball on to Ryan Papenhuyzen for him to go straight through a gap. If Jerome Hughes can attract enough defenders, Jerome Hughes can run himself and go straight through that gap himself if the defenders are attracted to Ryan Papenhuyzen, Eli Katoa. It's pretty much the same play executed in a number of different ways with a number of different variations, and Melbourne have grown so good at doing it, especially on that right-hand side. We've seen a little bit of it on the left in the midpoint of the season. Obviously, it was done twice on each side of the field. Obviously, that play specifically, when they do their spread set, they get it to Eli Katoa. Eli Katoa runs on the outside shoulder. Ryan Papenhuyzen fakes to go on the outside, cuts back in. They give the short ball. He goes straight through the gap. They did it on either side, I believe, against the Panthers earlier on in the year. I am so keen to see this play executed again here. As I said, it's the same play, but it really is dependent on the defense and their reactions to that play. But it can be done in so many different ways, whether Ryan Papenhuyzen does go onto the outside, Eli Katoa steps back in and goes through, whether Ryan Papenhuyzen steps back on the inside and runs himself, whether it's just a tip on because the defenders are attracted to Jerome Hughes, whether he fakes to step back on the inside and run himself and then give that short ball to Ryan Papenhuyzen. It can be done in so many different ways that we've talked about just before. It's going to be really interesting to see if they can pull a few of those off. Ryan Papenhuyzen, though, he is the main guy for that, and he does it so well. He puts himself in the correct positions, and because he's so quick and he has a great footwork ability as well, his stepping game is great. His speed, just get accelerating off the mark. He is so good at doing it. He's one of the better players in regards to you're so quick off the mark. In the competition, him and Reece Walsh do it so well. But yeah, look, it's going to be really interesting to see if he can pull a few of those off Ryan Papenhuyzen, outside, inside, wherever he chooses to run. He's just so quick. He just pulls it off so easily. I'm so keen for them to do a few of those and see if they can pull it off on either side of the field. But if there's one place where they're going to be doing it, it is going to be on their right side. It's their strongest side. Yes, Cam Munster is equally as good on that left. They've got Howarth over there, who's been outstanding this year, Xavier Coates. But I feel like that right side, they get so comfortable going down that side a lot. Jerome Hughes, Ryan Pappenhausen, Eli Katoa. There are so many strike weapons. Will Warbrick too, if they want to throw out the cutout pass to him. Nick Meaney as well. They've done it a few times. So they give him the short ball because people don't usually expect it because you're already looking at Ryan Pappenhausen, Hughes, Eli Katoa, all of these other guys to do insane things and cut back in and run themselves. You don't expect Nick Meaney to get that short ball as well. So, look, it's such a dangerous side. You've got so many weapons there, so many options. I'm keen to see how that play goes out, and Ryan Pappenhausen, his ability to impact this game as well. Off some short balls, off his running game, off his pace. He's definitely going to be one to watch in this game. On the other side of the park, Dylan Edwards. You've got a guy who is probably one of the best support play fullbacks in the competition. He obviously does so well at recognising when there's an opportunity for himself to get involved in second phase play opportunities. His running game and passing game as well. He actually came through the grade as a 5'8", Dylan Edwards, which is something that not many people know about him. But he did come through great as a 5'8" before moving into the fullback sort of role. He has killed it this year and in previous years as well. He's slowly gotten better and better and probably one of the better fullbacks in the competition at the moment. But a big part of Dylan Edwards' game is his support play. He does it so well, recognising when they need to get into second phase. Obviously, doing great work off the offloads, his running game, his footwork. But as I said, most importantly, his support play when players break the line. He gets himself always into the right positions. And then he's just safe as houses as well, Dylan Edwards, under the ball as well. When Melbourne or other teams try to pressure them with kicks, Dylan Edwards is always so safe. He always gets the ball. People look back at that World Cup and obviously himself on the wing there, being out of position, and they judge him on that a little bit still. But you look at his work this season and in previous seasons in NRL grade at fullback, he is safe as houses under the high ball. And that's something that's so great about Dylan Edwards as well. And that's going to be unreal, especially when we know that Munster, Hughes, and Harry Grant are going to be pressuring them with kicks. And I think Melbourne are going to kick early on a few occasions as well and get Penrith, try and fatigue Penrith. And we know how hard that is because Penrith, they're just such a fit outfit. They very rarely get fatigued and they keep such a high intensity for a long period of time. But yeah, I imagine Melbourne will really try and fatigue the Penrith Panthers. And I imagine the Penrith Panthers are going to do the same thing, kicking early on third or fourth, deep into their own end and making Melbourne work and making Penrith work vice versa as well when Melbourne obviously kick deep into their end and early as well. There's going to be a lot of early last tackle or fourth or third, I should say, tackle kicks in this game. I can definitely see that happening. Big test for big Paul Alamotti on that left-hand side. Defensively, as we said, we spoke about the right side attack of Melbourne. So many different variations in their plays, in their spread sets. It's going to be really interesting to see how he goes defensively. He's been very good over the past few weeks, but the thing I've been most impressed with him about is his kick chase. We saw it last week against the Sharks. He was outstanding with his kick chase, really put a lot of pressure on Sione Katoa coming out of his own end. That's going to be something to watch there going up against Will Warbrick coming out of his own end. Warbrick's such a tough, physical, but also very quick, outside back as well. If they want to trap him in his own end, Paul Alamotti's going to be switched on with that kick chase yet again here. It's going to be a much tougher assignment than Sione Katoa. Yes, Katoa has that step on him as well and can easily evade defenders, and you could argue that that's probably a little bit more of a difficult assignment, especially if you do give Sione Katoa a little bit of time to make that move, to make that step. Whereas obviously there's a lot more of Will Warbrick to tackle, but Will Warbrick's got a lot of strength, and his footwork is very, very good as well. So he's going to be a very tough assignment for Paul Alamotti. His kick chase has definitely got to be on. I am a little bit worried about the right edge with Isaac Tongo. Defensively hasn't been 100% this season. They have made the switch just recently during this final series where To'o is on that right-hand side now and Sione Taruva He's on that left with Paul Alamotti. They've made that switch just recently. Whether they keep that or they go back to the traditional sides, which is To'o and Alamotti on the left, Tungo and Taruva on the right. I think To'o's got to be on that right-hand side. Defensively, Tungo, as I said, has had some lapses this year. Going up against Howarth, who absolutely rinsed Sisif Talakai, who, granted, was defending out of position as well. But he's killed it over the past few weeks. Jack Howarth, he has definitely been in a red-hot patch of form over the past 2 weeks. Definitely someone that you want to have a good defensive centre marking. You definitely need To'o on that right-hand side to help mark Jack Howarth. And Howarth having Xavier Coates outside him as well, it's going to be a tough assignment for that right edge of the Penrith Panthers going up against this left-hand side, which is so deadly and led by Howarth as well. And Munster's going to obviously recognise that as well, with Tungo being a little bit 50-50 with his defence this year. I imagine Howarth and Xavier Coates are going to be getting a lot of ball on that left-hand side for the Melbourne Storm. In terms of the middle battle, this is going to be huge as well. Obviously, Melbourne have a huge out in Nelson Asofa Solomona. It's such a huge out for them, especially with the intensity that he brings. Just how hard he runs, the size of him. He's so hard to mark, especially close to the line. He's going to be a huge out for this Melbourne Storm pack. They've obviously got the young gun in Lazarus Varlepu coming off the bench. Only 6 games NRL experience. It is a big risk. Obviously, having a guy that's inexperienced coming off the bench and playing that role. I think that, though, he plays at such a high intensity. He runs very well. He's got great footwork, late footwork at the line as well. Really, really strong in contact as well. Lazarus, I think he's going to handle himself well. I am interested, and we did bring it up on Team List Tuesday. We did our first Team List Tuesday in a while for Grand Final week since there's only one game of football on. But one thing we did bring up is the 2020 lineup for the Melbourne Storm going up against the Panthers in that Grand Final and what bench they were rolling with. They obviously had Tino on that bench with Dale Finucane, but they also had Nico Hines and Brandon Smith, 2 14s coming off the bench. It will be interesting to see if a Grant Anderson or a Sui Lavi Farlongo is a late inclusion off the bench here for the Melbourne Storm, and they do go and run with 2 forwards, whether it be Christian Welch and Alec McDonald or Lazarus and Alec McDonald. Keep in mind, Christian Welch, he has only played between 6 and 8 minutes since making a return for the Melbourne Storm. I think it's a big risk having him off the bench too. A guy that's played limited minutes off the bench for Melbourne over the past 3 weeks. It'll be very interesting to see if he does end up staying in this lineup or if he does come out for another 14, whether it be Farlongo or Grant Anderson. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But in regards to the starting pack, we do have Josh King going up against James Fisher-Harris. I love this battle. I really do. I think it's going to be so solid to watch. You look at Josh King in his game last week and how he defended against the Roosters. And that Roosters pack who was just coming after the Melbourne Storm pack all night, especially the way that the Roosters started their game. The Melbourne Storm in that first 15 minutes were a bit shell-shocked and obviously let in 2 tries. But after that, Josh King really, really dominated against that Roosters pack. Physically, quick play the balls, defensively coming out of the line and putting some big hits on. If he needs to start the game with that physicality going up against James Fisher-Harris, because I don't think Melbourne can afford to start off with that first 15 minutes of being shell-shocked. They've got to come after the game physically straight away. I think it's going to be really dependent on who kicks off because I think this team that receives first is going to obviously have that early patch of momentum. And I think that's going to really go a long way and in deciding as to who wins the game, because obviously the team that receives has the first laugh or has the first, I guess, big hit, big moment to obviously set the tone for the entire game. So I think that whoever kicks off, that's going to be a huge factor as to who goes on to win this contest as well. But Josh King, he has to start well physically. Trent Liero is going to be a big part of that as well. Tuikam Kamitha, his first time starting, I believe, in the past few weeks. It's going to be a really huge battle, and I cannot wait to see how they go. Leota as well, he's been great for the Penrith Panthers over the past few weeks as well. Going up against Tuikam Kamitha, it's going to be a nice battle as well there through the middle. But I think, as I said, whoever's receiving first, they're going to go and put themselves in a long in a nice spot, I should say, to go ahead and win this contest because, as I said, they get that first moment in the game. They get that first hit up off the back fence, and that is going to be able to set the tone for the rest of the game, or at least for the first half. Isaiah Yeo, Trent Liero, this battle is going to be great as well. I wouldn't understate this battle either. You look at the form that Trent Liero has been this season, he's easily been in the top 5 or 6 for lock forwards this season. He's been outstanding. He's quick leg speed, quick play of the balls. His link man ability as well there through the middle. We talked about it in the preview for the last game against the Roosters, but Trent Liero, a lot of people were doubtful, and including myself, at the start of the season when he was named in that 13 role. Obviously, Melbourne for a long time before that were running with 3 front rowers, starting the game physically, being that physical 3 front rower side that would obviously really try and win the battle physically rather than having that, second phase type of side, that more mobile pack. They did go for a lot more of a physical 3 front rower style pack, similar to what Parramatta had at the back end of the season. It was probably a reason why they were so unsuccessful, Parramatta, but that's a conversation for another time. But I think that putting Liero into that 13 jersey, it goes against the style of play that they've been playing with for the past few years. It was a big risk to take, and they obviously, it worked out so well for them as well, having Liero there this year, especially at the start of the year when the form in the trials wasn't so great. To what we've seen now at the back end of the year, he's been selected as 18th man for Origin as well, over a few other guys that should probably be there, like your Ezra Mams, Sam Walker. There was plenty of guys that could have taken that spot, but Trent Liero got it, and that just shows how highly held he is for a number of coaches in the competition. But Trent Liero, very excited to see how he goes in this game. He's had a huge season. He's been in great form. Leg speed, play the balls, a big risk for Melbourne to take, and it's paid off this year, having that guy with a little bit more leg speed, a great defender, great footwork, quick play the balls. He's been outstanding this year, Trent Liero, and this has worked very well for the Melbourne Storm. Back rowers, Ali Katoa, Sean Bloor going up against Luke Garner, Liam Martin. Key battle for me would be Liam Martin actually going up against Cameron Munster. That's going to be a huge battle. I think that Liam Martin has obviously got a big assignment to protect his halfback. They're going to be sending a lot of traffic at Nathan Cleary, including Jack Howarth, including Sean Bloor, with some short balls as well, and Xavier Coates on that right-hand side of the park. Liam Martin has got a huge assignment. It's probably the biggest assignment that he's had all season, and particularly in this final series. Protecting Nathan Cleary from Munster, from Howarth, and also from Xavier Coates and Sean Bloor. That's going to be huge. I know that they're going to be sending a lot of traffic Nathan Cleary's way, testing out that shoulder. Liam Martin has got to be there to make some big hits and to obviously make a statement as well. But Nathan Cleary can do that himself too. We saw what he did against the Roosters, but also against the Sharkies as well, making a statement with his defense. That's going to be a big thing for Nathan Cleary and for Liam Martin. As for the other side of the park, Luke Garner defending up against Eli Katoa. Second half for Eli Katoa against the Roosters, we really saw him go after that battle. Obviously, become successful a few times as well, knocking off Angus Crichton a little bit in contact, and obviously great with footwork, setting up his outside men, hole running, decoy running. He was outstanding last week. Eli Katoa defensively too, very solid. He's probably been one of the better players in the competition this year, Eli Katoa. In the back row conversation, at least, he's been outstanding. His form has been consistent. He's great under a high ball. He's ball playing there on the edge is great. Defensively solid, but just so many variables to think about when defending a guy like Eli Katoa as well. I am looking forward to seeing how he goes in this game. Going up against Garner, that's going to be a really fun battle to watch there. And then the last battle that I think is going to be really important is going to be Harry Grant and Mitch Kenny. Both of these guys, two of the best hookers in the competition at the moment for me. Harry Grant, obviously the best. What he's done over his final series and the back end of the season has been incredible. Yes, didn't have the best origin, but post-origin, he's really made a point in making a statement to say, yes, I'm still the best hooker in the competition, and here's why. Kicks at a dummy half, defensively some big plays. He was solid, and particularly when Nelson went off for that period against the Roosters, he saved a lot of tries and a lot of opportunities that the Roosters were just going ham with Nelson off the field. But it was Harry Grant that would make that big defensive play. The Roosters would kick on last, and he'd always be back there for first tackle to give a ball at a dummy half. He was outstanding, Harry Grant. The little things and the big things that he does make him the best hooker in the competition. He's going to be very hard for the Roosters to handle, and particularly close to the line. He can be a real threat there as well. Last tackle, you've always got to keep him in mind as well because he's got a great kicking game out of a dummy half as well. Mitch Kenny, his deception around the ruck, a little bit of a running game, his ability to just come out of hooker slightly and obviously, really lock in that first marker and take him out of play defensively when giving balls out to his outside men. Little things like that. But also his service is probably one of the best in the competition. Defensively, he always looks to make a statement. He is easily at least in the top 4 or 5 for hookers this year for me. He's been outstanding. I think that he's going to be a big thing for the Melbourne Storm to worry about as well. His deception out of marker, out of dummy half as well. A little bit of a running game, but more so defensively as well. They might send a bit of traffic at Mitch Kenny's way, but I wouldn't because he knows he can make a big hit. He can easily mark up against the bigger defenders. We've seen that over the past few weeks. I think he put a massive hit on Toby Rudolph actually in that Sharks game too, in the first game of the final series, or second game of the final series, I should say. So we know that he can mark up against bigger defenders. He's definitely going to be one to watch there. Mitch Kenny out of 9, but also defensively, I know that he's going to do a really good job on the Melbourne Storm. And then one more thing from me before we go into our thoughts, who's going to win. I am going to be keeping an eye on Tyron Wishart. In this final series, he hasn't had as big of impact as we've seen throughout the season, but he's certainly made an impact. Leg speed, quick play the balls, second 5'8", roaming, ball playing. He can fit in pretty much anywhere in this side. If there's injury, he can slot right in and do a job. We saw that last year in last year's final series where he was the 7 when Jerome Hughes was out as well. He's been the 6 when Cam Munster's been out for a period this year. I think he's had 1 or 2 games at fullback this year as well. Tyron Wishart, he is such a valuable asset to have on the bench there for the Melbourne Storm. Very excited to see where he comes into the game. You'd imagine to be in that roaming role if there is no injuries in this game. But definitely one for the Penrith Panthers to figure out because obviously last game against Penrith, he pretty much stepped their entire forward pack to score a try straight through the middle of the field. So Tyron Wishart, he's definitely going to be one that the Penrith Panthers are going to be keeping an eye on and definitely training for as well throughout the week. So big question, who wins this game? I am going to go and tip the Melbourne Storm. I think they get it done. I think, as I said, they're a little bit ahead of the Penrith Panthers at the moment. It's going to come down to a Nathan Cleary moment for me. And I feel like as well, if they leave it too late, the Penrith Panthers and obviously Melbourne get to an 18-point lead, I'd even say a 12-point lead and there's, 15, 20 minutes to go. I just don't know because defensively Melbourne have been very solid this year. I don't know if Nathan Cleary is going to be able to drag them back from that. I really don't. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. So I am going to go with the Melbourne Storm. I think they get it done. I wouldn't shock me if Penrith go 4 in a row here, which would be insane. It'd probably put Ivan Cleary into the conversation for one of the best coaches all time, especially throughout this dynasty. If Melbourne win, Craig Bellamy is easily the best coach of all time. 10 grand finals in 22 years of coaching is insane. It's pretty much just under a 50% success rate. So very excited to see how we go here with this grand final. As I said, it's going to be one of the better games we will ever see. I'm going to go the Melbourne Storm. In regards to try scorers, just quickly before this time's out, I'm going to go with, it's going to be a tough one. For Penrith, I'm taking Brian Toto. I'm going to take Brian Toto for Penrith. For Melbourne, I'm going to go with a bit of value and take Eli Katoa. Eli Katoa, Brian Toto with the Melbourne Storm to win. Let me get that up on Sportsbet very quickly. Let's go with Melbourne Storm to win with Eli Katoa. That's Clive Churchill, not anytime try scorer. Eli Katoa and Brian Toto. That is $10.75. Clive Churchill predictions. I am going to go with look, if Melbourne win like I'm predicting, it's going to be off the back of Jerome Hughes. I know that he's that 450 favourite, but, if they win, it's definitely going to be him. There you go, grand final preview done.